TalkErie and the Joel Natale Show. We're live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State. Also live on Facebook and on YouTube. And once a month, the county executive, Brenton Davis, joins us. So good to see you, sir. Appreciate you joining us.
Good to see you as well. As
July
always.
1st, half the year is done.
That it is.
5 months till the big general election, right? I mean,
looking forward to it.
Yeah. I'm probably not going to jump too big into politics today, but I'm going to start with that because I just want to make sure I understand and that my audience understands where we are at with this check that we owed or did owe from the county to the Gaming Revenue Authority. Has it been cut?
Yeah, so that was done weeks ago.
Okay, can you just give us a little bit of backstory here?
Yeah, so I mean, basically the audit came out and it showed that the payments or whatever. I mean, when you're talking millions of dollars, essentially these are like rounding errors, right? It's the formula. And I mean, years ago when this was established, it was kind of a handshake deal. I mean, even the Auditor General called it informal and unwritten. Well, how in the world is somebody going to know something that's informal and unwritten? You know, but at the end of the day, I mean, you look at the numbers, you have legal review it. I mean, folks can try to make political hay out of anything, but the expectation as a taxpayer that I would have for any elected official is when you're talking about $500,000, you don't just stroke a check for that kind of stuff. You have to, I mean, there's a rhyme or reason. I mean, from a $600 grant to an entity, clear to millions of dollars of checks that we cut. Everything has an invoice. Everything has a legal review. Everything, I mean, even just for legal context and structure, in terms of the contracts. I mean, the expectation to just jump isn't the way government works. It's irresponsible. So, you have to do your due diligence with everything. So that's what we did. We reconciled the books, and then ECRA owed us $500,000 for the reimbursements that we paid out of the municipal gap fund for Snowmageddon last year. And, we hadn't received that check, and I mean, it hasn't snowed in quite a few months. So, I mean, it was just good to just clean up those books, get it all said and done. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we sent ECRA the remaining, $38,000 balance or whatever, and those books are reconciled. So, I mean, that's been done. It was kind of inconsequential, really. The
Auditor General also encouraged both entities to kind of work together and get, keep shorter accounts. What do you think about all that? Saying, okay, here's the gambling money. Here's your piece of the pie. Here's our piece of the pie, and be done with it. Well,
I mean, I think like anything, I think there's a lot with the game, the casino gaming revenue that's yet to be determined. I mean, look at how many times it's changed, over the years, and you look at the current trends with the casino are heading downward. So, I mean, those numbers are subject to change. And, I mean, there's other, state regulations or, state formulas or things that could come into play that, you play the hand that you're dealt from the state. You have to be in accordance with the law. I mean, to me, I'm unapologetic. I don't believe that this has done what it's meant to do. I think this was meant to lower people's taxes like we voted for it in 2006 on a referendum. And, I remain unapologetic about that. I don't think we should be doling out people's money to grants to other organizations and political favorites. I mean, irregardless. But, we move on, we move forward, and we deal with the cards that we're dealt, and we do the best we can with what we've got, and that's what we've been doing.
Talk about the concern. You mentioned that casino dollars are decreasing. So a couple thoughts. Are we still on the hook for any payments? For example, this is ancient history, but at one point we had committed so much money towards the airport runway out of the gaming revenue. Yep. Is that all gone and paid up?
So that was a bond payment. I think that was like don't quote me. I think it was like $110 million that taxpayers put forward to extend the runway.
Yeah.
and
that's cleared up.
that's the we don't.
Do we have any other
there's-
encumbrances on the
there's-
gaming revenue?
There's very minimal long-term debt. Now, with the exception being, former executive Dahlkemper swore up and down that, this community college wasn't going to cost us any money. And, me as a political opponent of that, called BS. And now here we are. I'm county executive, and, you got a council that says, oh, we got to watch the gaming revenue because we've got to pay for the community college. And I'm like, well, magically we were told this wasn't going to cost us anything. And now here we are at the exact point where me as a carpenter, maybe not this exact seat, but on this show, said, hey, look, what happens if this casino money formula changes or it runs dry? And everybody was like, that'll never happen. Well, here we are, not even at the end of my first term, having that very conversation. So it's like we don't just say things to say things. I mean, you have to budget responsibly, and that's casino gaming revenue is great, but it's not something set in stone. Matter of fact, no government revenue is. Right. You don't know what can happen. You don't know what state laws can change. I mean, look at the President Trump's big, beautiful bill that passed today. I mean, there's a lot of different nuances and a lot of different funding sources, Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP. I mean, like, you have all these different things that change and have ripple effects across state and local government and the federal government as a result.
The other thing that has come in recent view is this bill that Senator Laughlin advocated to allow less actual slot machines. I mean, I guess there was some kind of a law built into the gaming revenue to require some very high number of slot machines in a smaller casino like Presque Isle Downs. They're just not getting the business, and so it's just a cost deal. Do you? I guess you take that, and you also take where the skills game situation is right now, and we're getting overrun with skills games.
100%. So
it's all leading to less money.
Well, so to me,
for the county.
I look at this. So I've already done the legal research. Well, I haven't. My legal counsel has done the legal research on how the county can take a great big wet bite out of these skills games. And, it's unregulated. So, I mean, you look at it,
they don't even need a sticker from the city?
No, there's nothing. So, I mean, you look at these folks how do you know?
You can't play Pac-Man without a sticker from the city. But you know what I mean?
But even greater, think about this. You've got a machine, right, that's unregulated, that's taking people's money. So how do you know there's not a guy plugging an iPhone or something into the back of it going like, you're not winning today, pal? Or, hey, I'm going to limit you to a $50 payout instead of a $1,500 payout. Like, you just don't know. And, I mean, without these things being regulated, then you look at the other things. I call them, like jangle casinos, or jingle casinos. Like, they just pop up everywhere like jingle trucks, places. And, it's predatory. You look at the folks that are there. Mm-hmm. You look at these places downtown. You look at the folks with the lower income, oftentimes like sitting there playing these games. They're unregulated, taking their money, and then at the end of the day, there is no taxpayer benefit. This goes into the pocket of private taxpayer, or
right.
Private folks that. It's a cash game, so how are you even going to guarantee that taxes are paid on that income? There's just a lot of different things. So, I've got a couple of strategies that I'm about to take a few shots across the bow, from where I can, from the bully pulpit of the county executive's office. And, we'll see how much our friends at council put up a fight. But, I can't imagine anybody with any kind of common sense or at least a modicum of compassion for some of these folks out here that are really potentially being taken advantage of. And again, at the end of the day, it's hurting the community ecosystem that's been set up, not just, casino gaming revenue dollars, but there's no resources for folks with gambling addictions, no way to shut themselves off. the casino is highly regulated, and these skills games fall completely outside of that, just by calling it something different.
And they won some kind of a case in the state's Supreme Court that has allowed this proliferation. Is that accurate?
I mean, I'm not aware of the Supreme Court case or the
Okay.
case law or the precedent that it established, but I do know that with the legal research that we have, that I've got considerable grounds to make a few very strategic plays to, really make sure that what's in our communities, is a welcoming thing. You're not seeing casino. I mean, like, these things are popping up everywhere.
Yeah, they don't seem to be additive to the
Heavens,
to
no.
the
To
quality
fabric
of
your
life.
no, and it just takes. So, I mean, like,
Yeah.
you get folks that, I mean, let's face it. I mean, this is another form of addiction.
Wow.
So I mean, you go through these things, and then the lasting effects. But I mean, there's no way to regulate to make sure that it isn't fraudulent either. So I mean, I've set my sights on these things. We've done the research, and now it's time to start taking some shots across the bow. So I mean, I guess my message to these skills game Django casino folks is, bide your time.
Are you having any conversations with other county commissioners and things? I mean, everybody's up in arms about this, aren't they?
I mean, it's across the board, and I think everybody has the same concerns. I mean, there's folks that don't have casinos, that don't have the gaming revenue, but I think there's a lot of things like the American Legions have them, like there, or VFWs. There's a lot of places these skills games can exist, but I think at the end of the day, there's got to be backstops. I mean, you can't operate completely unregulated and have opportunities to be predatory. I mean, you could go to some of these skills games joints, and these things might not hardly ever pay out ever. I mean, how do you know?
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I mean, we're gonna address it.
We're talking to the county executive. We're going to take our first break. You are tuned to Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. County Executive Brenton Davis is with us here on Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. If you have a question for him, 814-679-1080. I want to ask you about homelessness and the housing thing. You've got another announcement coming up. I don't know how much you can share today about that, but what's going on with the tiny houses? How's that all coming along?
So, I mean, it's coming along. So finally, looks like we're through the hurdles with the bureaucracy of the city and kind of waiting on some, like anything else, BIU. I'm not going to give them too terribly long before I'm on their doorstep, but really just getting this stuff going. Tomorrow, we celebrate a national award.
Wow.
For the Community Resilience Center is the first year, obviously into COVID during Executive Dahlkemper's term, they stopped doing work release there. So we had this empty building doing nothing. Well, I just watched 1 year go by, 2 years go by, and there's nothing in this building. And taxpayers are paying for it. We're heating it. We're doing. I'm like, this is insanity. We've got people sleeping on the streets. I've got a perfectly good building. Hammett was supposed to have come out with something last year that didn't happen. So, I mean, this year this past winter, I just grabbed the bull by the horn and said, enough's enough. This is what we're doing. We took charge and just made a decision and rallied a lot of community partners together. And for the first time in Erie's history, there wasn't a single person that had to sleep in the streets by choice. They had somewhere warm to go every night all the way through winter. And, it's just incredible. We didn't have a single cold weather death, this year. And so, I mean, it's definitely saving lives. It's definitely helping people. It's part of that Streets to Sustainability initiative that I, have coined. And, county government's taking the charge. But we got nationally recognized by the National Association of Counties as a best practice. Not only a best practice, but innovation in terms of human services and how to do that. So, I mean, you're talking out of 4,000 some odd counties for us to be recognized on what we're doing with our unhoused neighbors. That means a lot, and that's a lot of people. I mean, we had hundreds of people, hundreds of church volunteers, Yuma, our neighbor's place, a lot of our directors and assistant deputies and everybody. I mean, all hands on deck, the home team. I mean, there's just so many different people that made that possible. And, this Tiny Homes Village is just the next step in that Streets of Sustainability initiative. How do we take folks from, maybe somebody lost a house, and we find that, everything we do is based on data. We've talked about data points and overlaying data and looking at what are the correlating factors, and things like one of the greatest factors in us having to remove children from houses with their parents is housing insecurity. It's not typically the wild abuse or anything that maybe you'd think, and I mean, unfortunately it still happens, but you have housing insecurity. It's a simple thing like, maybe dad works construction, he falls off a ladder, hurts his back, can't go to work for a couple months. Mom consequentially downsizing at work. Well, now you find a dual income family that's either single income that can't make their payments, can't make their rent, can't make this, can't make that. And before you know it, they've worn out their goodwill, or maybe they don't have family members, or they hop, and then all of a sudden it's a situation where, we get calls due to maybe hygiene or flags from a school or things of that nature. But it's that stopgap, being able to take a family where it's realistically just hard times, multiple factors that cause, a negative consequence of them losing their housing. And instead of causing additional trauma to these children and their families, being able to stabilize them quickly, to say, hey, look, here's a tiny house, can sleep 6 of you or whatever it is. And you can put a family in there. They're safe, they're warm, they're dry, they're cool in the summer, they're warm in the winter, kitchens, showers, a place for them to get a foothold so they don't slide further behind. And then you remove the kids and put them in foster care, which creates a greater burden, on not only society, but the taxpayers foot the bill. But the greatest thing is the trauma these kids endure. Imagine being taken away from your family, right? Especially a healthy family situation, just because mom and dad, couldn't keep a roof over their head for one reason or another. So I mean, it's not a be all end all for all folks. I mean, this is really that stopgap to stabilize as quickly and effectively through transitional housing the people that we can, because that dad, hey, his back is better. He's able to go, or maybe he finds a job at Home Depot for 6 months, or whatever it is to help mom and dad get stabilized, get their footing under themselves, take that little breather, get back into the workforce, and find that stable housing, and keep the nuclear family intact. I mean, that is all things that you see in social services. When you have a nuclear family that's intact, I mean, the children are better off, the family's better. I mean, just exponentially a greater chance of success.
What kind of role does the county have in some of these tent cities that are still around? I mean, I'm hearing about, behind, you mentioned Home Depot, behind some of those big box stores in Summit. There are people living back there. There's people living along the tracks. I mean, sometimes they're on the tracks. They get hit by a train. I mean, I know the city law enforcement has a role, but does county DHS have a role too? I mean,
so for us, I mean, obviously we're not an enforcement agency in any way, shape, or form. So what we do is, like, through DHS, we have obviously we lead the home team. There's a whole slew of folks that do outreach to unhoused folks, offering services, and they're very familiar. I mean, they know where they're at. They know them by name.
Wow.
I mean, the thing about it is like, for a time period, say in Summit, it was a certain religious group that owned that property for a period of time, and basically the head gal in charge said, you can't do anything with them, So I mean, it kind of created a safe haven until it caused problems for them. The railroad, obviously, like, that's railroad property. So the railroad, you see them come down through there with trucks and dump trucks and excavators, and I mean, they just go through and tear them down. They care.
Tear down the tent.
They tear down the tent cities,
wow.
And that's the thing, is like really just providing these folks with somewhere to go. And I mean, you look at the fires that happen in blighted neighborhoods, which is why, like, the land bank acquiring things and, tearing down blighted structures that aren't safe, so they're not heating them with, barrels and setting houses on fire, or running cords that's stealing power to, run a fan and causing fires. And I mean, it's just, again, compounding negative factors that cause major issues.
It seems like it's a big issue, but we're trying to get our arms around it one piece at a time. We've got the county executive with us here on Talk Erie, back after the news. It's a Tuesday, the first Tuesday of the month, and that means most months that we're going to talk to the county executive here on the Joel Natale Show on Talk Erie, live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio, also live on Facebook and on YouTube. And county executive, I know there was a big announcement in June about kind of the first tranche of child care money going out to folks. Can you explain that relationship between the county and the of ECRA? Because it's up to like $5 million, right? I mean,
so we've got, so total, the county, the taxpayers of Erie County have made a total of $5.5 million
is that what
investment.
It is? Wow.
So what it was $2.5 million that came from our ARPA dollars, which was redirected by the current council from our municipal gap fund. Again, money that was meant to lower taxes and offset taxes, but they took it and invested it in child care. Well, as the county executive, you have the right to administer. So, council makes an allocation for $2.5 million. Well, I required ECRA to match it. So that in essence, doubled it, because I talked about we will leverage our ARPA dollars. So that was a 1-to-1. I mean, it wasn't nearly as good as the municipal gap fund, where this investment was only dollar for dollar, where typically we've been able to do anywhere from 4 to 7 times of a return. And that's really how you get more bang for your buck, by getting more funding and leveraging more sources. But, child care is workforce development, which is in turn economic development. So it's another way to help remove barriers. The other $500,000 is in partnership with both the City of Erie Redevelopment Authority and Corey's Redevelopment Authority. And what we're focusing on is like the in-home child care.
Okay.
So for, say, particular like rural child care, like there's not always something readily available, commercial, child care in, say, Lake City or Mill Village or
so this
Albion.
might be a person who. How many? I don't. You probably don't know all the rules, but how many is like a family child care like that? How many kids are they allowed to have?
Well, it depends. So, typically it's...
is it based on square
6?
footage? Or?
That's based on the adults. There's a lot of different regulations, but I think maximum that you can watch is 6 per adult.
Okay.
And then you got to be careful once you get to a certain point per household, it's capped. I don't know what, but you take somebody, but it enables, say, maybe a family, a mom, a dad, or whatever. It's like, hey, I'm already staying home watching my one little one. Well, what the heck? Let me throw 2 other toddlers, or a toddler and a 5-year-old, to earn some extra income. Well, what this does is this, obviously we work through the Early Learning Resource Center and their STAR system, and, a lot of best practices that have guided these decisions to say, how do we take somebody that was, say, maybe like kind of like a fly-by-night, like aunt, or somebody like dropping kids off, and we all grew up that way. Like you got the neighbor lady that'll watch your kids for X amount per hour per day or whatever.
Right.
But, those that time has kind of passed. You want them to have the clearances. You want them to have, like, just a generally secure household with no major hazards.
Yeah, you've got to have the electrical,
or like
good,
the fire that killed those 5 kids. It's
crazy.
like you look at stuff like that, where in a situation like that, like the government steps in and regulates, but they didn't come with any way to, like, okay, here's the solution. Here's how we can help. And this was kind of our answer to that, is say, hey, look, we don't want you to fly by night. We want you to step forward and say, hey, look, we're not here to penalize you. We're here to help make sure that if you're going to watch Erie County's kids, it's going to be a safe place. There's not basement steps to fall down, or maybe a separate kennel for maybe a dog, or just...
and you're able to get a grant to help that out.
And that's a grant per household. That's what that $500,000 is for. And the other 5 is for larger commercial development.
There were some big grants or big developments there. Let's get a phone call in here. Hi, you are live on Talk Erie with the county executive.
Hello, Captain Billboard. I haven't talked to you in a long time.
Okay.
You were talking about grants. Are there any grants out there for installing high-speed internet east of Bartlett Road, west of Manchester, around Edinburgh, around McCain, or is that all stopped?
I'll let him answer off the line. Thanks so much for the question. So yeah, what's going on with internet? And because at one point the county had an initiative, right? I mean,
so we have it all mapped. So we're actually further ahead than most counties in the country. Again, that was another national best practice that, myself and Jessica Horan both spoke at a national level. I mean, I was in Austin, Texas, talking.
Jessica's from the county.
Jessica Horan's the director of planning for the county.
Yeah.
And I was in Austin, Texas, talking about how we were able to map this out, figure out, where unserved and unserved areas are. But again, it comes down to this big fight of money, between the feds, the Pennsylvania Broadband Authority. The Pennsylvania Broadband Authority has sat on this for years and years and years and years and years. And then finally the Trump administration steps in and goes, hey, look, what are you guys doing? So now, as of I think last week or the week before, there was some movement with the BEAD funding. Okay. So I think now they're finally ready to hopefully start, doling that out. I mean, we were kind of just sitting there, fingers crossed, holding our breath, going, is this going to get clawed back? Anything can happen. But once they release that money, we're looking at right now an 11 county, essentially co-op with 11 other counties in Northwest Pennsylvania, to draw down revenue bonds, because you're talking, this is probably a $500 million project in the grand scheme of things. So if you get like
a countywide, yeah.
Well, no, you're talking across all the 11 counties.
Oh, gotcha.
But even for us, say realistically, say we're 100 million. That's the airport all over again.
It sure is.
You know what I mean? So you can't take this lightly. And then how do you burden somebody that's already got internet? But then how do you slight somebody that doesn't? So you're looking at, I think the genius and the wisdom behind the art of this deal is, revenue bonds, that you can take out a bond based on the future revenue payments. We can guarantee it as a government. It helps the local infrastructure folks build out what they need to. And in the end of the day, it'd be like a co-op between 11 counties. So the taxpayers own the infrastructure that is in turn leased to an internet service provider. So that way, we're not handing money because every one of these internet service providers came running. Well, we'll do it for this. We'll do it for that. They all want the government money to, why wouldn't you? Like, why aren't you buying me an excavator and a bulldozer for my business? Sure. Like, what the heck? Like, let's do 100. That's kind of the windfall what some of these folks could have saw. So, really to make sure that we're being responsible with taxpayer money, you own the fiber so you can control, who's operating on it. You can kind of control some of the pricing. You can control when, let's just say that, somebody were to get a hold of this infrastructure and 30 years from now, they're like, we're not updating it. It's fine. And we're like, dude, like we're on super high speed fiber times 5 by then. Right, and we're like, look, it's just not fast enough for whatever 25 10G. Years. Right. So that really puts the taxpayers in the driver's seat in terms of really controlling the quality and also like responsiveness and driving competition amongst many internet service providers. So, that's kind of where we're at. This has been a super slow crawl. And this in terms of we're not really sure of where the federal money and all this other stuff is going to go, which is why, when I stepped in and kind of grabbed the municipal gap fund and kind of started making strategic investments, we didn't do a ton with internet because of these other funds that are out there. Like imagine had we have spent all of our American Rescue Plan money on internet, and everybody's like, internet. Well, there's another bucket of money out there. Yeah. We need to draw down from that because we would have spent that, then not qualified, because the more you did, the more you'd show that you're covered, which would disqualify you from this other money.
Right.
So we'd have internet and no water, sewer infrastructure and stormwater. Well, we focused on the other, showing that we have a great need for internet, which in terms we can get far more done.
Here's the big head scratcher for me, though, when it comes to internet, is that the Erie City Council sending back, what was it, $900,000 or $1 million? I don't even know how much it was. It was a lot of money.
So it was like $860. Something like
from
that.
From the Appalachian Regional Commission. They said we don't need internet. We send that money back.
So that's not at all true. So to set the facts straight,
they sent the money back.
So it's not they didn't need the internet, and they did send the money back. So I actually coordinated the call with the director of the Appalachian Regional Commission and the program manager for the state. What they have is they had until October of this year to get it done. There is no way on earth they were going to get it done. So the problem is when you have a grant and you can't get it across the finish line, by letting that essentially that money expire in that program, you take it clear to the end and you didn't draw it down, that's a huge negative. So think about that like taking out a mortgage and not making a single payment. You know what I mean? It affects your credit, right? Well, it's the same thing with like, so the Appalachian Regional Director's like, well, you know, you could always apply in the future. Well, what do you think's going to happen? You just defaulted on nearly $1 million grant. You defaulted on it. You didn't get the work done that you said you could do. So, I mean, that's like hiring a contractor and said, hey, look, I know I gave you $50,000 to do my kitchen, but you didn't buy a single board and you didn't get it done in 2.5 years. But hey, when you get your retirement check, like hire me to build your garage, and you're going to look at that guy and go, you're nuts. Well, the Appalachian Regional Commission is going to look at them the same way. So when we had that conversation, you know, that was a thing that I discussed with the local elected leaders and said, look, like this director literally just told you the only pathway for Corey to be considered for future funding through the app, and there's a lot of money there, is look, you're not going to get this across the finish line. Like, I mean, the work isn't done. You know, they're not to a point where they could get, I mean, like, you don't even have all your ducks in a row to even begin to get the infrastructure up. And even if you were started getting the infrastructure up, you're not going to have time to get that completed by the deadline. You know what I mean? So the shot clock's going to run out, and that's going to affect your future opportunities for getting grant funding. You don't want that to happen. You're better off to go and say, hey, look, we bit off more than we can chew, which they understood. They said about 85% of these larger broadband projects failed across the country. You know, and for various reasons, because everybody's still looking at BEAD money and federal money and all these other things. But then you look at it's an alternate plan too, because the BEAD money is not going to qualify for Corey because they're not served, or they're not underserved, they're unserved. Right. You know, so I mean, there's a lot of different.
So what is the solution? What's the end game for Corey to get gigabit service?
Well, I mean, I don't know if. I mean, just like get in line with everybody else. And here's the thing. That's still operating off the Akron of the 1990s model. You know, when Akron did this in the mid 90s, that was a huge thing.
But Chattanooga,
yeah,
same
like
thing, right?
100%. And these things, these hubs are everywhere. So the idea that you put fast internet in the middle of Corey that's going to magically drive businesses, well, I'll tell you the problem that you're having is you're putting the cart far before the horse, because one, you don't have the ability to even build a single house down there because of the capacities on the sewer. You know, so the CEUs, the units that they measure in sewer, like you'd have to tear down a house to build a new one. Like, I mean, that's literally.
So what's the plan for the sewer?
Where they're at. So that's 100%. It's like you've got to really strategically meet the need from the ground up. I mean, you can be as forward thinking as you want in terms of internet, but let's just face it. Like super high speed internet, there's no company that's going to be able to build to that capacity that's going to move there anyway. You know, it's just, to me, that a lot of that was just a good idea fairy and a pipe dream, you know, and that's nothing against those folks. But at the end of the day, you need to focus on the things that move the meter. You know, when you need to focus on your sewer, your stormwater, you're putting more stormwater every time it rains. The people at Corey are paying more to process rainwater than they are sewer, and it builds up their capacity. There's all sorts of different things, you know, and that's going to make you more competitive. It's the housing stock. And then even if you could, I mean, and keep in mind, I've taken 4 different major investors to Corey in the last 2 months, and not a single one of them was like, yeah, I want to build here. And it's because of the limitations. I mean, the challenges of the workforce, you know, is the relationships that we've cultivated with the manufacturers in Corey are saying, how on earth are you going to bring another major employer that says they can create 200 jobs to Corey when we could create 50 jobs tomorrow if we had the people to do it? But the housing stock doesn't support the people living there. And then you add in, they have a disproportionate amount of public housing, 28%. 28% of the public housing across Erie County is in Little Old Corey with a population of less than 6,000. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that need to be righted to right-size that. I mean, you're talking 40 years of managed decline, 50 years of managed decline. like many places. And you've really got to start back to the basics. It's the non-sexy things in the ground that you don't see to enable. I mean, the redevelopment authority, I mean, they're kicking off building 4 brand new houses. Like, that's huge for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're looking at how do we look at some developments? How do you look to bring the housing stock? The other thing is like upper level engineering jobs, school jobs, LECOM, their hospital down there, like their nurses
it's
and doctors.
perfect for remote working. You know, the Tulsa 10,000.
Yeah, but again, take where are you going to put 10,000 people if you can't?
I'm saying what they're saying is they give incentives for people to work remotely.
But again, if you don't have the housing for them, what are you going to do?
Sure.
You know what I mean? And that is where that plan was.
So is that
flawed.
we pull back on the whole county? Is that one of our major challenges? Is that you can't find decent housing across Erie County? Is that a major dilemma for us?
Well, I mean, I think that's everywhere. I think that's everywhere in the country. The one advantage we have is it's significantly less expensive per capita here than it is many other places. So we're still an affordable community. You can still buy a house for 100, 200 grand, and it's decent housing stock. But I mean, you have to look at the different microeconomies here in Erie County, like the different regions. They all have very different challenges. The challenges of Corey are not the same challenges in Northeast or in Harbor Creek or in Mill Creek or in West County and Lake City. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's why the Municipal Gap Fund is so critical. It's that $43 million historic tax cut that my administration has been able to put forward and invest money in all these townships across the board to help them take care of those things. Otherwise, you wait 10 years, that's $110 million that these townships are going to have to come up with. Mm-hmm. You knock them out in the here and now, and then you have the infrastructure. You look at the Amazon deal that fell through.
Right, yeah.
You look at some of these bigger deals we're looking at. It's the electrical infrastructure that's kind of a problem. Water infrastructure is a problem. Yeah. Being able to manage your stormwater and your sewer water if you're dealing in any kind of food manufacturing, mm-hmm. Being able to put that back into the sewer and manage those capacities and not overrun your local infrastructure. It's a lot of these different things that we haven't done for decades that now we are. We're in that pipeline. We're breaking ground on projects. Some are already done. The water tower in Girard, already done. A lot of these sewer management plants that the taxpayers would have to pick up the bill had we not done this. This is my strategy to put as much as I can out here into all communities and save taxpayers money. Because if you pay a bill now, you're not paying it 3 times the cost or 2 times the cost or whatever, a decade from now. So, I mean, it's really, this is where economic development starts, is investing in the infrastructure, and you need to simultaneously build your housing stock. You need to build your educational workforce pipeline. And then in all of that, you expand your local businesses, help create new businesses in your startup ecosystems, but then also do the domestic and foreign direct investment business attraction from either overseas or other domestically owned companies that can come in here and say, hey, yeah, we'll buy the IRG site. We'll buy Hero BX. We'll buy these failed, businesses or failed infrastructure properties and things, the brownfields and the green fields, and those folks will invest. But you have to do everything with balance, because you can't look beyond your existing business owners that can expand to, say, Corey Manufacturing. We help them move through some red tape, $3 million expansion. It's done. They're down there operating. Awesome. You look at all these different things. You look at Adler. You look at all these folks that have chose to invest in Erie that can create 10, 15, 20, 50 jobs. I mean, you do that 10 times over, that's 500 jobs. And that's how you elevate, and workforce is the greatest challenge right now.
I've got less than a minute with the county executive. I want to leave you with a question that I asked the mayor just less than 2 weeks ago, right before I went on vacation. And I asked him about the concept of conversations with other municipalities and things. And I asked him, well, when was the last time you had lunch with the county executive? And I guess you've had one lunch with the mayor. How important it is for you to be conversing with township supervisors, borough councils and borough managers and the mayor of Erie and of Corey.
I mean, 100%. It's absolutely critical, which is why I started the fusion cell. You know, I brought Jeffrey Cooper in. Like, we have absolute daily contact, you know, if not 7 days a week on these issues with all 38 municipalities. You know, that's how we've been able to leverage and deliver this historic tax cut. You know, being able to have those relationships that the county has never had in history with these municipalities enables us to know what the issues are, but understand them at a micro level, so you know the difference of what works in Corey doesn't work in Lake City, and what works in Albion doesn't work in Mill Creek or Harbor Creek. You need to know what each person brings to the table. It's like having different kids. You know, one's strength is greater than this one. This one can carry heavy weight and he's big. And this one over here, she's a little bit littler, but she's smart as a whip and musically talented. You know, like, you've got to know what these are. And municipalities aren't much different. Bigger pocketbooks, different challenges, smaller pocketbooks, other challenges.
And does that help us sing from the same page when we to look attractive to a foreign direct investment or to site selectors?
When it helps you know exactly where you can go. So when we talk to somebody that says, for instance, the one now, we're looking at a $50 million investment, you know, 100 jobs out of the gate. And I can look right at it, and we have an inventory. And, I mean, within 3 minutes, or most times within the first 30 seconds, I can be like, okay, this would work on these 3 lots in these 3 places. I mean, to us, it's when you do this every day, you know, it's literally like the back of your hand. You don't have to tell me to, like, right foot pedal, left foot pedal when you're on a bicycle and balance and breathe. Like, it's just what you do, you know, and economic development is 100% what we do.
Leave it there. The County Executive, Brenton Davis, thank you so much, sir, for making the time today. Appreciate it. It is 4 minutes in front of 5.